And welcome to episode 75 of the Noble Character Crafts podcast. My name is Amy, and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, August 30th, 2019. This is a podcast all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting, crocheting, quilting, and hand-dyed yarn to share with you all. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts. And you can also get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. You will find links in the description box below to all of the places that you can find me, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am currently hosting a make-along on Instagram. It is called the Vintage Make-Along, and it is for any pattern that you would like to make that was published in 1999 or earlier. Any craft is welcome and whips are allowed. So if there is any project that you would like to start, or that you started even a long time ago and haven't picked up in a while, or that you're working on that is a vintage pattern, I would love to have you join in. In order to enter, all you need to do is post a picture on Instagram and use the hashtag VintageMAL. And you do not have to finish your project in order to win a prize. So you just have to join in and you will be entered to win a prize when it is over, and the MAL is going until the end of September. So please join in. I would love to see any of the projects that you're making. Today I am wearing the Summer Dawn cardigan that I finished last month, or maybe the month before that, I'm not quite sure. And this is a pattern by Andrea, black. And I knitted this using Hue Loco yarn in the I Can't Even colorway. I have gotten a lot of use out of this cardigan already this summer. It's lightweight as it's made out of fingering weight yarn, and it has these shorter sleeves, and so it's worked really well to wear when I'm in air conditioning or anything like that. And then now the weather has cooled off quite a bit here, and I am comfortable wearing it today as well. So I have really enjoyed this sweater a lot. I'm very happy with it. I have a few finished objects to share with you all, which I'm super excited about. The first one is a little dinosaur that I crocheted for one of my sons who just had a birthday yesterday. He turned 7 and he loves dinosaurs. And as I was looking through Instagram, I believe one day, I stumbled upon the designer that is known as Madelenon, and she has so many adorable crocheted amigurumi patterns, and this is one of them. This is called Pablo the Allosaurus, and isn't he cute? I used a 2mm hook and fingering weight yarn as the pattern recommended. I didn't, just looking at the picture, I thought it was going to turn out a little bit bigger than this, but it's super cute. I'm really happy with it. So he's just maybe 4 inches tall. So he's super cute. He was made from the crown of the head, and then the body is worked all in one piece down to the legs. And then you make the 2 hands or arms separately and sew those on. And then the tail is made separately and sewn on, and then the spikes also, of course, are made separately. As you can see, they're in a different color. The main color that I used is a one-of-a-kind colorway from my hand-dyed yarn, Noble Character Crafts yarn, and it is very similar to the lightest shade from my Bountiful Faded kit, but it is not a color that I sell individually. And then the contrast color for the spikes and the tummy area is made using my Bold as a Lion colorway. I got some safety eyes to put on there as the pattern recommended. Those were, I've never used safety eyes before. Those were extremely difficult to insert. The stitches on this are just really tight, and there was hardly any room. I mean, I really had to struggle. The thing that worked best was I took a larger crochet hook and kind of made a hole and wiggled my hook around to kind of open up a space for me to fit the safety eye in, because it was really, really difficult to squeeze that through the different stitches. But I'm really happy with how this turned out, and my son loves it so much. It was very tedious to make. I did enjoy it at first, but as I continued working on it, it was, you know, like I said, a really tight gauge, and it started to hurt my hands if I worked on it for too terribly long, so I would just work on it in short intervals. But I'm so happy that I was able to get it done for him in time for his birthday, and he really loves it. But I'm really hoping, I mentioned last time that a couple of my other children asked for animals for me to make them, some from the same designer's shop. We looked through their shop, and a few of my other kids asked for some. They haven't mentioned it again, and I'm hoping that they don't really want them, because I don't really want to make any more. I mean, I'm glad I had this one made. I'm glad I made this one for my son, but I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it at the very beginning. It was okay, but after that I was kind of struggling to get it done. So anyway, I had forgotten that last time I recorded a podcast, I also mentioned that I hadn't made many amigurumi animals before. And my niece came to visit along with my mom this week, and she reminded me that I had made all of those Christmas ornaments for my mom. I don't know if you had tuned in to see that episode before Christmas. I had made a bunch of woodland animals as ornaments for my mom that were about the same size, but I believe that those were knitted. So other than that, I've only made one other amigurumi toy for my other son, and that was a pretty simple, it was an elephant that I never ended up putting any legs on. So it was just a pretty simple pattern, and I used worsted weight for that as well. So this was definitely the finest gauged amigurumi thing I have ever made, and it was a little challenging. The original design calls for there to be 7 spikes. I ended up making 7 spikes, but I couldn't fit them in. So you're supposed to put 3 on the head and 4 on the tail, but I kind of wanted to keep the spacing even, and it looks like on the picture on the pattern that the 4 on the tail are really squeezed in a lot tighter. And well, I had just put one on this on the far end as far as I thought it should go, and then I put one close up here, and I didn't think there was enough room to fit 2 more in there without it being too crowded, so I just put one in the middle, and I thought that looked good enough. So I'm really happy with the end result, and like I said, my son loves it, so I'm very happy I was able to make it for him. But I'm hoping I can get out of making any more, because I don't know, I don't want to make any more. Okay. My next finished object is the socks that I had started last time I recorded a podcast, and I was able to finish them. They are a very simple pattern. I just did a ribbed pattern. So I cast on 64 stitches with a US 1 2.25 millimeter needle, and I did 20 rows of 2x2 ribbing before I switched to the main body, where I did 3x1 ribbing. So you can't really tell much of a difference, but there is a bit of a difference between the cuff and the main body of the sock. I did a heel flap, a slip stitch heel flap and gusset, and a rounded toe, which is my favorite way to do it, to make socks. They're the best fit. The yarn that I used is Red Heart, Heart and Soul in the Riverstone colorway. The makeup of this is its fingering weight, and it's 73% wool and 27% nylon. Here's I had 2 skeins of this yarn, and here's what's left. I didn't measure it yet, but there's not a ton of that left. The way that this colorway knit up is interesting. I don't really like it. To be honest, I don't really love the looks of these socks. They look pretty masculine to me. If I had a guy that I knew would like them, I would be glad to gift them to someone. I made them to fit me, so, you know, the guy would have to have, you know, smaller feet for a guy, I suppose. I wear a 9.5 shoe size women's, a US size, of course. I don't know, I think in European, maybe it's about a 40. I lived overseas many years ago, and I remember it was very difficult to find shoes in my size in Turkey, where I lived, because I was a lot bigger than most women there, I guess. And so, I don't know, it was very difficult. I usually had to buy men's shoes if I needed to buy a pair of shoes over there, because it was very difficult to find my shoe size overseas. But anyway, if I remember right, it was about a 40. anyway, if I could find somebody that would like these, that wears the same shoe size as I do, I would be glad to gift them. They will be nice and warm. The wool is, it's a, you know, a hardy, kind of a little scratchy wool, but I think it'll be super warm. So that's nice. I do have very cold feet in the winter, so that would be nice, but I just don't love the looks of them, and I don't think that I will gravitate towards pulling them out of my sock collection to wear because, I don't know, I just don't think they're just not my favorite. I don't love how that the yarn, the color's pooled in there on the sock, and I really don't like the, I don't know, I thought it was going to be more of a self-striping yarn for some reason. I just didn't look at the skein very closely, and it wasn't, and I don't know. I'm just kind of like, meh about them. They're okay. I actually ended up knitting them pretty quickly compared to most socks that I make, mainly because I was like, I just want to be done with these. I'm not really enjoying these colors and how they're working up, and I don't know. So I got a pair of socks done pretty quickly, but I really didn't. I don't love them, but they're okay. I think that's all I have to say about them. The yarn is nice as far as like the actual yarn, but I don't love the colorway. Okay, the last finished object that I have to share with you, I'm so excited about. It is my quilt, and I'm so happy that I was able to get this done. I'm so pleased with it. I was able to make it from start to finish in less than 2 weeks, and this is my first quilt I've ever made. So I was so addicted to continuing to work on it until it was done, and I'm so pleased with it. It's not perfect, of course. It's my first quilt, but many people have encouraged me that, you know, if you don't notice the mistakes as somebody is writing, if somebody was, it's a funny analogy, but they say, if somebody was holding it and riding on a galloping horse and you can't notice the mistakes, then it doesn't matter. So I'm pretty sure that would pass, this quilt would pass that test. But anyway, I'm very, very happy with it. So I took a class at the local quilt shop in our small town. It would have been at the beginning of the month, and they showed us how to make this square in class, one of these squares, and it's just made using strips of fabric, scrap fabric. It's called a string quilt because these strips of fabric are called strings, and you just lay them on a 4.5 inch square and randomly pick new colored fabric until your square is filled up, and then you trim off the edges so that the square, so that the piece is squared off. And anyway, there's 80 of those, and you piece them together to make a larger square like this with the 4 pointing towards the center. And then you add these strips and the middle square. And then to piece them all together, all the different squares, you add these white strips. Well, the original quilt was not these colors. These were supposed to be black strips, but I changed my color scheme. And then add more of the corner pieces. So I did change my color scheme quite a bit from the original pattern. The original pattern, like I said, you were supposed to use black here, and then these strips are supposed to be gray. All of the middle squares are supposed to be scrap fabric, and all of the cornerstones, they call these cornerstones, and those were all supposed to be red. But I really didn't want to have that type of a color scheme. I wanted mine to be lighter and springier in colors. So I'm really, really happy with the colors that I picked out. So last time I recorded an episode, I had already finished piecing the top of the quilt together, and then all I had left to do was to put the, baste the batting and the back piece and quilt it and add the binding. And that all went well. I love the back fabric. My daughter helped me pick out this fabric, which I think is so pretty and goes along with my color scheme really nicely. And this went really well. I ended up using spray adhesive to baste the 3 layers together, and that was so simple. I have used the tutorials by Erica Arndt on YouTube for so much of this quilt. So for basically since I last recorded the rest of the steps that I needed to complete. I used Erica Arndt's video tutorial. She has a whole series on Quilting 101. And so she had a video on how to baste, and she talked about either pinning or using a spray adhesive. And I decided to go with the spray adhesive because it looked a lot simpler, and it really was very, very simple. And then she has a tutorial for quilting using your sewing machine, and that's what I did. I just ran straight-ish lines along the, well, you can see where I've done them, along all these straight lines going both ways. There are several areas where those lines aren't straight because my squares didn't line up perfectly. I'm not going to go through and point out all of my mistakes though, because that's kind of pointless. But anyway, like I said, it's obviously not perfect, but I'm super happy with it. Anyway, I used a walking foot to do that, and it went so well to quilt the top of it. It was really easy. I was able to get it done in one afternoon, maybe 2 or 3 hours at the most. It was really, really easy, and it went well. And then the binding, I was so nervous about doing the binding. Again, I watched a video by Erica Arndt on how to make the binding strip and to sew it on. And she does a really good job explaining it. And I was so nervous about doing that. I was afraid I was going to mess it up and it was going to be really, really difficult, but it was not. It was not difficult at all. I didn't, of course, do that perfectly either, but I'm really, really happy with it. And I think that the binding just looks really good. I'm so happy with the corners. They look good. It's just so neat and tidy how it all finishes it up, and I was just really afraid that was going to be super difficult, and it wasn't. Anyway, I'm super happy with that. The problem that I had when I was sewing on the back of the quilt, so the final thing that you do is sew the back of the quilt piece on, and there's a few times where I went on to the front piece of the binding, which you're not supposed to do. Again, I'm not going to point all those mistakes out. There's just a few spots where I wasn't over quite far enough, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see it in its full glory. So here it is. I guess it probably doesn't look much different than it did last week, but it is done now, so that's wonderful. I haven't washed it yet though. I'm nervous about that, but Erica actually has a video on how to wash your quilts as well, so I'll probably watch that before I wash it. But I really do love how the back looks as well, and I'm just so pleased with this. I love it so much. It's got such a nice weight to it. It feels really good. It's not too terribly heavy or bulky, but it's got a nice weight to it. I can't wait to cozy up and really use it. Used it a little bit, but it's not quite warm enough to really cuddle up with a blanket yet. But anyway, I really, really love it. I suppose using the white material is a little bit risky in our home with 5 children, but I just love the looks of it, so I love it. And I hope that I will actually use it and not just keep it as a precious, keepsake that I never actually use. I like using the things that I make, but it might be a little hard to use this because it's just, I don't want to ruin it, but I do want to use it. So anyway, I'm so happy with it, and I enjoyed the process from start to finish so much. And I can't wait to make more quilts now. So I already have my next 2 quilts planned. So I will talk about those more later on in the episode. Oh, I did just use a lightweight batting for this. I didn't mention that. Oh, I just love it so much. I'm so happy with it. So those are all of my finished objects, and now I'll go on to my works in progress. I just have a couple works in progress to share with you this week. Really, I only have one real work in progress, and that is in this wonderful project bag that I received in a swap that I did with Mary Ann of Rock Islander. And in here is my contribution for the vintage make-along. I am making a cardigan using a 1941 vintage pattern called Fanfare. It is by Hand Knits by Beehive, and here is a picture of the cardigan. It is made in pieces from the bottom up and then seamed together. I am going to be modifying the collar. I'm not going to be doing that little loop-de-loop collar. I'm just going to be doing a 1x1 ribbed collar, I believe. And for this, I have already finished the back piece. I don't have that with me, but it is complete, and I am currently working on the left front piece. Last time I showed this to you, and I had already started on the ribbing. For this pattern, there are 3 sizes included in the pattern that range from 33 inches to 37 inches. I have a 38-inch bust, and so I increased the rate of stitches 1 more size so that I could, you know, have a larger garment to fit my bust measurements. And so I did that for the back piece. I just followed the increments that were provided in the pattern for the 3 different sizes and just did 1 more increment of stitches to get to a larger size. For the front piece, I did that same thing. I just followed the increments and went up. I am trying to follow the dimensions for this sweater because I'm really happy with how this Summer Dawn cardigan fits me, and I would like this cardigan to fit me in the same way. The back piece matches this sweater perfectly, but when I started the first front piece that I showed you last week, after I'd gotten all of the ribbing done, which is 31 rows, I think, or 32 rows of ribbing. Anyway, I had gotten that done, and I measured it to this cardigan, and it was, I believe, 16 stitches too wide. And also, I hadn't realized that this pattern has you knit the button bands as you're knitting, except that there's no button holes in the ribbing. So the last button is right here on the waistline, and then I don't know how that's not gaping on her, but that would normally gape open, I'm sure, on me. And most people, I would think, maybe they pinned it or something, because I just don't understand how ribbing isn't opening up there at the bottom without a button. But I don't believe there's a button. And as I got past the ribbing, then I noticed that the pattern calls for you to start knitting the button band as you're going along. So anyway, I modified the pattern a bit. I ended up actually following the stitch pattern for the medium size for the ribbing. And then it calls for you to do a bunch of decreases before you start working the actual stitch pattern, but I didn't do that for the front pieces. The stitch count then stays the same, and then I'm knitting the large size in this pattern, which is the 37-inch size. So basically I'm knitting that largest size for the front pieces, but I did not put on as many stitches as it had recommended that you do for the ribbing. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, that is measuring against this cardigan perfectly, minus the button band. I'm going to go back and pick up the button band and knit it on separately instead of doing it as I go, because that's just, I don't love doing that step of cardigan making, but I think that will work out well for me because I definitely want to have some buttonholes in the ribbing section. I probably could have figured out how to add them to the ribbing section, but I just thought it was safer to do the button bands as I'm used to. I ended up having to rip back the ribbing that I had already done, and I recast it on and re-knit this. So this progress keeper is not actually showing my progress. It's just marking the right side because, as I said, I had to re-knit this whole thing since the last time I recorded. This is knit at a gauge of 28 stitches to 4 inches. It is made using fingering weight yarn. I'm using my own hand-dyed yarn for this, Noble Character Crafts yarn, on my gentle base, which is 100% non-superwash fine merino wool. And it's in the colorway called Humble, which is just a light peach semi-solid. Here it is in the cake. And I really like this colorway. I hope it doesn't wash me out too much, but I think it'll be nice. And it, of course, will go with a lot, being such a light color, I think. I am using US 1 2.25 millimeter needles for the ribbing, and for the main body I am using a US 2 2.75 millimeter needle. All of the needles that I use are Chow red lace needles. So this is kind of a slow process. This cardigan seems to be taking me quite a while. When did I cast it on? I cast it on July 10th, so it's been a slow work in progress. Because, I mean, I still have lots of sections to work on this, but it's coming along. I don't know. It is a bit of a, I mean, it's a tight gauge, it's fingering weight, and I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it, but it's going a little slowly, but that's okay. The other work in progress that I'd like to share with you this week is one of my Scrappy Afghans that I'm making. I have 4 different Scrappy Afghans in the works, and this is one of them. This is my favorite of the 4, though, I think. Just because it's so precious. I don't know. It's very precious. So this is a Hexi Afghan that I am crocheting out of fingering weight scraps. And I absolutely love it. And I like to show it off whenever I get it to a full hexagon shape. So right now I've got 8 hexagons along each side, and I really love it. I just think it's so magnificent, but it is going to take me forever to make because I really think I want to make this pretty large. I don't know how large exactly, but I definitely want it to be at least a good throw-sized blanket, if not larger. This is my own pattern, but it's just a simple hexagon. There's nothing too special about it. So basically I can just talk you through it. I start off the centers with 12 double crochets, and then I do 2 double crochets together for the second round with 1 chain in between each of those. Then I switch colors for the third round. I do a double crochet cluster of 3 in each space from the row below. And the fourth row I do double crochets in 3 stitches. So 3 double crochets in 3 stitches. And then for the corners I do 2 double crochets in 1 stitch, then double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the middle stitch of that cluster from the row below. And then the third one I do again 2 double crochets, and then I repeat that around. Hope that's not too confusing. Anyway, I also am joining as I go for each motif. So I'm just doing a slip stitch into the stitch across from where I need to join in order to put the pieces together, and that way I don't have to weave in any of my ends. The back looks nearly as pretty as the front. All of those tails have been crocheted over, and then I can just clip off any little extra piece that maybe didn't get crocheted over because it was too long, but all of those ends are secured in there, and I just have these ends along the edge that will get crocheted over as I add more hexies. So I'm really loving working on this. I am using a 2.75 millimeter crochet hook. This is a clover, which I really enjoy using that one. And this just takes the tiniest little bit of scrap yarn. Here is what I have right now. So you can see that there's a lot of tiny little pieces. Whoopsie. Anyway, you can see most of these are pretty tiny little scraps. I also have a lavender sachet in there. But anyway, it's going well. I really enjoy working on it, but it is a slow going project and it will take me years to finish, I'm sure. But I love it, so I don't mind. This is going to be another project that is going to be super hard to actually use when I have it done, I think. Okay, so that is all of the projects that I have to share with you all, but I do have several other things that I'd like to share with you. First of all, I have some new things that I'd like to share with you. So I decided to subscribe to Vogue Knitting, and I received my first 2 issues this last week. I had been waiting quite a while since I subscribed to get this one. This is the issue that convinced me that I should subscribe to this magazine, because there are so many patterns in this issue that I love and I would love to make. So this one is the early fall 2019 issue. And then I got this one day, and then the next day I got this one. They came right after each other. This is the fall 2019 issue. So I think that the yearly subscription includes 6 issues, and it's somewhere between $25 and $35. And it seems like there's about 20 patterns in each issue, if I figure correctly. So the price per pattern, even if I don't end up liking many throughout the year, still the price per pattern is so inexpensive. So I thought it was worthwhile to try it for a year and see how many patterns I was able to, make, or even, keep on hand to make in the future from this magazine. So I'm super happy with this issue. Like I said, it is what sold me on for subscribing to this magazine, and so I thought I'd share a few of the patterns that I love from this issue. The first one that I definitely want to make, in fact it might be the next cardigan or the next garment that I make, is this cardigan, which is called Textured, and it is a design by Nora Gahn, which I love Nora Gahn's designs. I've made a few of her patterns already, and I really love them. So this cropped cardigan is right up my alley. I think it's beautiful, and I just absolutely love it. I forget what weight of yarn it's made using. Okay, it looks like it's made using DK weight yarn, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, that will be great. And yeah, I think that will be the first pattern that I make from this magazine. But like I said, this one is specifically for cardigans. There's a lot of cardigans in this issue, and I love cardigans. So I really even like this one, this oversized one called Chevron. These are both cute. Bear Isle and Moss Stitch. Is that really the name of them? They seem like strange names, but I guess that's right. And then there's also a ton of shawls in this issue. It's also, you can see here, Wrapped in Beauty, multi-season shawls, and there's tons of them. They look like they're all rectangular in shape, which I like that. I like that shape. Oh, I do need to show this cardigan as well. Isn't that gorgeous? I don't know that I would wear it because it's really, I don't know, the shaping of it isn't really my style, I don't think, but it's so pretty. I maybe could modify it to be a little shorter or something like that. It's really, really pretty. Anyway, I wanted to show some of the shawls because they are gorgeous as well. Here is one that I love. What is it called? Oh, Enrapture. That's beautiful. I love that stitch on there. They're all actually very pretty. Here's this one. It looks like it's done in a chunkier weight of yarn. Oh, they're all called Enrapture. I might have the names wrong. I'm sorry. It says Enrapture on every page. Well, anyway, this one's also very pretty. So there's just a few examples of some of the beautiful patterns in this issue, so I'm super happy with that. But then this one came, and I don't find any patterns in this issue that I like. I mean, they're okay, but they're not my style, and I'm not excited to make any of them, unfortunately. But hopefully, overall, over the 6 issues throughout the year, hopefully I will like enough to, but like I said, even with this one issue, there's several patterns in here that I would love to make, so I think my subscription cost is worth it just for this one issue. So there are a few patterns in here that I think are pretty, but I would just need to modify them quite a bit to fit my style, I think. This is my favorite. It's very beautiful. I love that one, really, I do. But I would not have it so long. I would make it shorter. And it's made from the bottom up in pieces. So that might be a little bit trickier to modify the length. You know, if it was made from the top down, it'd be easy to modify that. But I really do love how the ribbing goes right into the lace pattern. Isn't that beautiful? And I like the shape of the sleeves as well with that bell or balloon-like sleeve. I think that's really pretty. And the one on the next page is cute as well, but it's the same kind of style, having it more of a longer tunic style almost. But it is also pretty. And I believe they're all made, or both of those are made from the bottom up in pieces, so they might be a little more difficult to modify. Anyway, there are some cute patterns in here, but like I said, they're just not something that I would make. This is a really interesting one. Super cool. I wonder if I watched the podcast called Clogs in Africa, and she lives in South Africa, and she just showed off on her latest podcast a pair of socks that had a zebra theme. I wonder if she's seen this pattern, because I can see that maybe she would like that pattern as well. It's really clever. I mean, look at the back of it. It's really clever. Anyway, and there's a lot of oversized sweaters in this issue. This one's not too bad. I might be able to wear that that pullover. But see, like this, it's just too, I don't know, it's just not quite my style. Here's another one that has a really oversized look. They're just not patterns that I'm super excited about. As you can see on the front cover, this one's quite oversized as well. But anyway, that's okay. It's still a great deal, I think. Okay, one other thing I wanted to share with you that is new is this little quilt. What is this called? Maybe these are fat quarters. I don't know. It's a stacks. Emma and Mila, 5 pieces, 18 by 21 inches. I just picked this up from Walmart, and I loved the colors in this. I especially love this greeny gold color. But I thought all of these fabrics were really cute, and obviously they coordinate really well together. And I am going to be joining in the quilt along that is hosted by Southern Charm Quilts, and it's sponsored by Havel's Sewing. It's called the Little Miss Sawtooth Quilt, and it's meant to be a scrappy quilt, and I'm super excited about that. So it's a quilt along where you get to work up a quilt square. I don't remember how often, but I think the quilt along goes until January or something like that. So anyway, I am super excited to join in that. It is a free pattern, and it's a, you can join in for free, and there are prizes that are given out every couple of weeks, I think. So that's super exciting, and I picked this up just to add to that quilt, and then hopefully I'll be able to use some other scraps from my stash to add to that quilt. Since it is supposed to be a scrappy quilt, hopefully I won't have to go out and buy a ton of new fabric. And then, as I mentioned, I do have a second quilt planned as well. I did go ahead and sign up for the September class that my local quilt shop is offering. So they offer a beginner style class. It seems like every month they offer a class for a beginner quilt to learn how to make a beginner friendly quilt. And so I've signed up to do the September one, and it is a pinwheel. It's called Joseph's Pinwheel, I believe. So it's a pinwheel motif, and I'm hoping to modify that pattern to fit my king size bed here. And I am trying to decide on the color scheme that I would like to do for that. I think I want the main base to be a light gray, or if you can see my bedspread here, I don't know if you can or not. But anyway, it's kind of a light gray color in there, and so I think I kind of want to stick with that for the border or the background color. And then I'm not sure what kind of accent colors I want to put in there. I'm thinking maybe to go with more of a fall theme, and then maybe make a quilt for each season and change it out. That would be fun, but then I don't want to limit it to only being able to use it in the fall, so I'm just trying to decide what I want to do with the extra colors that I will put into that quilt, but I'm super excited about that as well. One more new thing that I want to share with you that isn't necessarily craft related, but I thought maybe other viewers would like to know about this. This is a new neck wrap that I got from Walmart as well, and it is so nice. So it's weighted, it weighs about 3 pounds, a little over 3 pounds. It's got this super soft velvety material on it. It's got beads in there that are, you can heat up or you can cool it as well. It's also got lavender inside the pouch. It is from Calming Comfort is the label on there, and it just sits so comfortably on my neck. I have neck pain quite often, and I don't think that my crafting helps that neck pain with, you know, the way that I lean over my knitting and even quilting. You know, you're leaning over to do a lot of work, and this just is so wonderful. So I just throw it into the microwave for 2 minutes, and it warms it up wonderfully, and it holds the heat for quite a while, and it's so comfy, and I just highly recommend it in case anybody else out there has any neck pain. I've really enjoyed using it. So I actually haven't tried cooling it. I've just only warmed it in the microwave, but on the tag it says that you can put it in the freezer and then it could be cool on your neck as well, which I probably should try to do that as well. Okay, I also, since I really only have my one cardigan project on the go because my Scrappy quilts don't really count for whips in my mind, I thought I'd share with you a few of the other projects that I'd like to cast on soon. So the first one is, as you maybe have noticed if you've watched before, I've rearranged my room just a little bit, and I've moved my dress form from this corner to this corner. And so I would like to make a wall hanging that goes up in this area. And what I would like to do is make a doily, basically, a large doily that I can then put in a hoop to hang on this wall. And I was able to find this beautiful pattern. It is a free pattern that I was able to find on lovecrafts.com. And it is, actually you might be able to find it on Red Heart, the Red Heart website too, because it is a pattern by Red Heart. It's called it's called the Affinity Doily. And I just think that pattern is so gorgeous. It's meant to be made, obviously, in a crochet thread that is typically found, you know, when you make doilies. You typically use an extra fine crochet thread, and that's what this pattern was designed for. But I'm actually going to be using a DK weight yarn. I have quite a bit of the Knit Picks Cotlin yarn left over from a cardigan project that I made last year. This is in the Ash colorway. It's a DK weight, 70% cotton, 30% linen yarn. And I think that will really work well on this wall. And the original dimensions for this are 13 inches in diameter. And so I'm thinking this will be at least twice as big. And I measured it this morning, and there's 30 inches here on this wall. So I think that will be fine. If it's twice as big, I'll get about 26 inches, thereabouts. I'm not 100% sure what size hook I should use. The original pattern calls for you to use a 1.05 millimeter crochet hook. So I'm not sure how I should adjust my hook size with this weight of yarn, but I'll probably just play around with it and see what I like for how it's working up. So that's one of the projects that I have on deck to start next. And then I also want to make another pair of socks. I just purchased a couple of Kay Litton's patterns off of her Etsy shop. She's known as the Crazy Sock Lady, and I love her designs so much. I love her and her podcast so much as well. And she, I think, just recently started publishing some of her patterns on Etsy as well. And so I was able to pick up a couple of her new sock patterns, and I'm planning on using this Knit Picks Felici in the Witch's Brew colorway to make a pair of her heel toe do-si-do sock pattern that I really, really love the looks of that sock pattern, and I can't wait to cast these on. I'm trying to work through a lot of my stash of sock yarn because I've had so many different colorways in my stash for so long that I'm not working up, and so I really want to work through my sock yarn. So I'm excited to work up these. And then the last pattern that I have in mind to cast on next is I'm not sure if I know how to pronounce this, Metanoia shawl by Devin Ventry of Knitty McPurley. If you watched my last episode, you would have seen the brass tacks cardigan that I finished, and actually that has been published now. So if you are interested in getting a copy of that pattern, it has been published. So I highly recommend you checking out nittymcpurley.com for her patterns. And she also has a wonderful podcast that I highly recommend, also as Knitty McPurley on YouTube. And the Metanoia pattern, I wonder if I can show this without giving away the pattern. It's kind of tricky. Here is a picture of it. It's a 3 skein shawl using fingering weight yarn. And I printed it in black and white, so you can't see the colors very well, but here's color 1 in this section mainly, and that it's a beautiful lace section. This color 2 is the lighter color, and then there's the stripes are striped in with the 3rd color, basically. And I have had this hank of yarn from a homespun house for almost a year in my stash, just sitting there waiting for the perfect project. And so my birthday is coming up in a week, and I am going to be turning 40, and so I thought it would be fun to cast on this project. And this actually I got as a birthday present to myself, and it was a birthday club because I believe Molly's birthday is in September as well. Anyway, this is called Unicorn Magic. It's not a repeatable colorway, I don't think. And it's on her soft sock fingering weight yarn, 75% merino, 25% nylon. And so this is going to be my color 1 for that shawl. I'm not sure about the other colors that I'm going to use. These are a couple that I might use, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I did just make recently the my purple shawl. What is it called? The Stripified shawl, which was a pattern by Stephen West, and that was all in purples. So I'm not really sure if I want to highlight the purple in here or not. But this is my Honor colorway from my hand-dyed yarn that I might use. And then this is also my hand-dyed yarn, but it's just a one-of-a-kind colorway. So I might pair those two with it, or I might go with more of a green color to pair with this. I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely want to use this color, and I definitely want to make that shawl. So those are the next 3 projects that I have in mind to make, and I'm super excited about those. The last thing I have to share with you is a set of yarn from my Etsy shop. As I do every time when I record a podcast, I like to share a set of 3 yarns that I think would work well together in a project. And today I have a new colorway to share with you. And here are two other colors that are not new, but they are some of my favorites. So here is my set for this week, and I'm so excited about these colors together. As you can kind of tell, I'm feeling anxious and excited for autumn to come, and I think that these colors just scream autumn. So the new colorway is actually a colorway that I dyed first off almost a year ago, not quite a year ago. It was late fall last year when my friend Tina came over, and she worked with me to come up with this colorway. And I am really happy with how it turned out. It is called Plenty. But anyway, I hadn't listed it in my shop until now, just because it was such a fall looking colorway. I wanted to wait until when I dyed it last year, fall, we were already getting into kind of the winter season. And so I wanted to wait until this year to list this colorway, but I really love it. So the base color is kind of like a butternut squash color. I think that's what it reminds me of. And then it's hand painted with this deep plum and some kind of a burgundy-ish, reddish color here. Some bright orange pops in there as well. So I just really love this colorway so much. And I have paired it along with Vineyard, which is just a nice deep wine colored semi-solid. And I've also paired it with Living, which is the yarn that I dyed up for the Pantone 2019 color of the year, which is called Living Coral. So I thought that these 3 looked really great together, and yeah, I think that they would make a beautiful shawl, actually. Maybe I should make that shawl in these colors, but I really want to use that homespun house. I don't know. But these would be really pretty together in a shawl, wouldn't they? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, what do you think? Comment below. Do you think I should make my shawl in these colors or use the homespun house along with some others? I don't know. I'm really liking that. Okay, anyway, All of my colorways are available on all 9 of my bases in my Etsy shop at all times, and any quantity that you might need for a project. I'm happy to help you with any color combinations that you might need, or if you would even like a custom colorway, I'm glad to do that as well. Just please don't hesitate to send me a message through Etsy to ask me any questions that you might have. I'd be glad to help you out. So that's all I have for this week. I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you would like. I hope you all have a great couple of weeks ahead. Bye-bye.